Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful spring evening in Nova Scotia, and today my plan was to show you the cutting process of these nice Cordaites. These are these late Carboniferous trees that we found with Terry about a month ago on our beach hunt, and I was gonna cut a bunch of them and then show you the epoxy process, how the epoxy brings out the nice shine and the details in the rings. But I got to the end of the video and realized I didn't actually capture the cutting process. So I had cut these on the big saw at work, the 14-inch core saw. And these are the ones I didn't end up epoxying, but I just wanted to show these before we go in and I show you the finished epoxy product here. This is what they look like cut and dry. They have some really awesome details that gets brought out by the barite casting that happens within these. So the white is barite and the black is essentially coal or carbon. And what is happening here is the trees, these are late carboniferous trees, Pennsylvanian in age, and they go through extreme coalification. They're old coal swamps that they got buried deep, turned into kind of coal, kept the details of the wood, but then you had barite come in later and cast within the rings there, and it's really cool effect. Now these really don't take a good polish on the flat lap or by any other polishing method, so essentially what we're going to do is put a nice big thick layer of epoxy on them, and it really brings out the details. And I didn't want to show you this wet because I wanted to show you the dry and then take it in and epoxy it and show you the end result. So this is what it looks like dry, and you can still see some details in it, but it really pops when you put that epoxy on. So again, this is the end of the video. I've already actually done the epoxying on the pieces, but when I finish doing this little intro, we're going to be going right to the epoxy process, and I'll take you through that. So come along with us, and let's turn these into something beautiful. We're back in the shop. We made all those cuts, and they turned out pretty good. We're going to apply the epoxy now. Because these pieces are so soft, these will not take a polish on the flat lap or the vibrating lap. So we're going to go ahead and do an epoxy on these surfaces. These are the surfaces dry. The cuts came out pretty nice and smooth. I'm not going to show these wet. I want you guys to see the epoxy applied to the dry surface. Some of these pieces, a couple of them fractured a bit, so it's going to be a good example of the epoxy filling in the cracks. So hopefully we'll be able to do that and show that today. But some of these pieces have really nice ring patterns on them, where the barite and the carbon play off each other. The black and white effect, it's really cool. So I'm really hoping these are going to pop after we apply the epoxy. Got my tools here. I got my hardener and my resin. They're going to go into this little measuring cup, equal parts. We're going to mix it together, and then we can apply it right away. I want to apply it while the surface is level. I've got it one piece ready to go here in my vise. I've already leveled it on both sides. So as you can see, it's level on both sides, so it's perfectly level on my vise. And we're just going to apply the epoxy there after we mix it. Other tools I need a torch, because once I apply the epoxy, there's going to be some bubbles on it. And I use the torch to heat up and eliminate all the bubbles. They call it flashing it off. But essentially with the heat will eliminate all the bubbles on the surface of the piece. So we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. I'm going to mix up the epoxy now, and then we will apply it to our first piece. flash this off and I'm going to leave it for a bit. I might put a little bit more of a coat on, like a second coat on in a bit, just to wait to see if any of the epoxy, the layer that I have on now, seeps into some of those cracks. And if it does, then I'll have to come on and put another layer in so you don't see any dimples. So we're going to let that one sit. I'm going to set up another one here over to the side on the bench. So I got another piece level here and I applied the first coat. And it's looking pretty good. There's a couple really big cracks. There's a big old crack there. And that center piece there, that was all hollow. But it's filled with epoxy now. And I'm waiting to see right now whether or not any epoxy sinks in there and creates a divot. If it does, I'm going to apply another coat. But right now, that's been there for 10 minutes and it's looking pretty good. That surface is pretty flat. So it might just need the one coat on this piece. And this was the original piece I started, and I want you to see here, this is a good example. So this one's been sitting for about 20 minutes. And everywhere looks good. This one little spot right there is giving me problems. It's eating up epoxy like crazy. There's epoxy sinking into that. So I just keep adding another layer to it, and it keeps eating away. I'm going to put a third coat on it now, just to see. All I'm going to be doing basically is just putting a little dot of epoxy on that, and it kind of self-levels. I don't really have to worry about spreading it out. Once I have the coat on there, anything I add after this, it kind of self-levels itself. So I'm going to add this little dot right there like that. And a third one. So now it's all filled in. You see, you can't see the divot anymore. So I'm going to wait another 10, 15, 20 minutes to see if all that epoxy sinks back into that hole. And if it doesn't, then I think we got it. But these are looking really nice. You can see the nice barite play off of the carbon, the black. You can see the rings in the tree. This was a double ringer. So that's pretty cool. I love the look of the epoxy. These late carboniferous Cordaites are just beautiful when you epoxy them like this. Really nice. So let's wait a little bit and then we'll check back. Okay, I have another piece here. This piece has a lot of saw marks in it. So I'm going to perform an experiment to see if the epoxy can hide the saw marks. You can see there's a really bad one right there. Follow my finger. Really deep crevice here in the piece. And there's another deep one there. So let's see if the epoxy can fix all this up and make it look like one smooth surface. Okay, so I did the 3 pieces tonight, and I did first coat. I'm going to let them, they need to cure for 24 hours, so I'll come back tomorrow night and check them. I did these 2. They're looking pretty good. All the divots are out of them, and there's doesn't seem to be any loss of epoxy down any crevices or cracks anymore. So I think I got the epoxy in all the grooves and cracks. And we'll come back and check on them tomorrow night. If there are any seepages through the night, through any holes or cracks, we'll put another coat on, and that should do it. But hopefully we won't have to do that. I've got one more piece I got to do. I'll start that tomorrow night. I don't think I'm going to do that one. It turned out kind of blah. We'll see. Maybe we'll do it. we'll check back with you tomorrow night. Here's the finished product. I only had to do one coat on those. I just put a really thick coat on. I was watching it every 10 minutes or so, and then I go back and put another coat on, and that was suffice. No divots or anything on these. They all turned out with really awesome high gloss mirror shine. No dimples or anything, so the epoxy is nice and level on each face. This was the one with the really bad saw marks. But you can see the epoxy makes it look perfectly level, but that has some really deep ridges of saw marks in it. You can see one right there. And there was another really bad one over here, which you can't see anymore. But you still can see that one because it was just a little bit too high. But it's level, it's completely level, flat and smooth. So the details on these are really spectacular. The barite play off the black. You can see the rings of the tree. This epoxy really makes these specimens pop. It's not letting me focus, it's too shiny. Again, these are late Carboniferous in age, Pennsylvanian to be exact. From Nova Scotia. This is the third piece here. You can see all the cracks in that, but they're all filled in and smooth. Just as a comparison of the dry surface to the finished surface, this side here is the unepoxied dry surface, and this was the end slab off this piece here, which is the finished epoxied surface. So there's a difference. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry I didn't get the cutting part, but you know, you guys have seen a lot of my cutting videos. Really not much different there. The main part of this video was the epoxy and turning these late Carboniferous trees into shiny display pieces, and I think we did that. I'm really happy with the way these turned out. If you guys like the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a great week, and we'll catch you in the next one.